At what level are you going to teach the story? Which deen? And then on the other side, we can say, فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَالنُّورِ الَّذِي أَنزَلْنَا. Because if we're not looking at everything through that lens, then it's not really nur for us, except when we walk into the masjid, or except when we want to just recite some Quran because we're doing muraja'ah. Other than that, it's not really nur. So this is the need of the hour. And when we develop this, I am telling you, the world is hungry for Islam. The world is hungry for the light of Allah. And when young college kids they're also gamers, they're also studying programming, they're also learning AI, they're also learning the responsibility Allah has put on you. Inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan.
What steps would you encourage in the home if you see your teenagers starting to get further and further from praying and the deen in general?
I think prayer is a behavior. And behavior, when you see a change in behavior, there's a change in mindset or in emotions. What you see on the outside is a result of something going on the inside. And a lot of times we panic about what's happening on the outside. You're not praying. You need to pray. But we need to be more concerned about what led this child to not want to pray. The why. And we need to have room for them to be able to express that. I noticed that you don't want to feel like praying anymore. You want to talk to me about it? No, you'll get mad. I want to tell you, you're going to get mad. No, I won't get mad. Just tell me. I don't know. You say you won't get mad, but the last time you said that and I told you, you remember what happened? Because I can't forget. The problem is if you don't create a safe space for your child, your son or daughter, to be able to say the worst things. I don't know if I believe in Allah anymore. I don't know if I believe in the Prophet anymore. Maybe that's what they want to say. And if you're going to give a reaction that is inspired by a Pakistani drama you've been watching, Hi Allah. Or La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. If you want to do that, then you're not helping anything. Your dramatic reaction is only going to teach them that you can't handle what's going on inside their head. You need to have a level head. You need to say, okay, so if you've been having these doubts, let's talk about them. And he says, you sure? Want to talk about them? Yeah, let's talk about them. You know why? Because at that point, your child is becoming an independent thinker, and they have their own ideas, and their ideas should be respected as something that's worthy of discussion, not worthy of a scolding, worthy of a conversation. And that's why you need to be connected to people that are doing this kind of work, that are helping answer some of these fundamental questions for young people, right? Like Hamzat Sources from IERA is helping so many kids that are, inclined towards atheism, agnosticism, and he's helped solve so many of their kalam problems, right? It's kind of a kalam 2.0. I really like this course by Sheikh Hamza Karamali. Take note of that. If your young son or daughter is having doubts about the faith. He's got a course online by Al-Basira Institute. It's called Why Islam is True. The name of the course is Why Islam is True, and the name of the teacher of the course is Sheikh Hamza Karamali. It's really brilliant work. And especially for young teens and early college students, it's very, very helpful. Inshallah.
I have a little complex question, but it's only giving me 160 characters. That comes to
Allow this to finish and I'll give you an opportunity, sir.
In your opinion, what should Islamic psychotherapy look like? Is there Quranic guidance on people providing mental, emotional, and spiritual healing to others?
What should Islamic psychotherapy look like? I don't comprehensively know the answer to that question because that's not my field directly. I can say that people that are in this profession they have more of an obligation to study Quran more deeply than everybody else. Because people are coming to you looking for healing, and if your lens isn't refined, then you're not going to be able to give them something Islamically refined. My criticism of what's available right now, with all due respect, A lot of the conversations about Islamic psychology are inspired by the works of pioneers like Imam al-Ghazali, right? And even though those are amazing works, that's secondary literature, meaning those are incredible scholarly works on spiritual dimensions and psychological dimensions of our religion, but they are not Quran itself. Those are step two, and we've made step two into step one, and we've assumed that everything the Quran has to offer in terms of, emotional, spiritual, psychological healing has already been extracted. I believe that to be fundamentally untrue. The Quran has not yet been mined for what it contains, for what it has to offer, especially in the realm of healing and counseling and psychology. So I would strongly recommend those of you that are going into the field of psychology, are practitioners, are counselors, therapists, there are some surahs you definitely need to take a deep dive in. Towards the end of the Quran, Surah Al-Shams, and all of the surahs that are addressing the Prophet directly, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're very important for you. Surah Yusuf is of critical importance for you, right? And by the way, the entire Quran is, but these are like the starting point for you if you're in the space of psychology. My lectures of them may be helpful to you because I did try to correspond with some psychological concepts and how the Quran is actually either agreeing or diverging from what psychologists are saying. And it's offering its own way of therapy. There's also a program, I believe, at the Islamic University of Islamabad of Quran-inspired and Islamic ethic-inspired psychology. They're doing some interesting pioneering work there in Islamabad. I need to look it up because I met the professor and I didn't keep his contact information. But inshallah, look it up and I think you should be able to find it. Jazakumullah khairan.
How do you deal with narcissist people in the family?
How do you deal with narcissist people in the family? Well, let me call my family and ask them how they deal with me. I don't like these labels, guys. What's a narcissist? What's the Arabic equivalent of a narcissist? Right? Is it a mutakabbir? Is it an arrogant person? Is self-absorbed? The world revolves around that. If that is the case, who's the most narcissistic person in the Quran? Oh, very good, Fir'aun. Very good. And who was told to go talk to Fir'aun? Musa alayhi salam. And Allah said about Fir'aun, لَعَلَّهُ يَذَّكَّرْ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Maybe he'll benefit from the reminder. Maybe he will become fearful also. Who's saying this? Allah is saying this about the narcissist with a capital N. Yeah? Allah is describing that no human being has a permanent label. No human being has a permanent label. And in new pop psychology, the first thing we do is this person's toxic, this person's bipolar, this person's a narcissist, this person's egomaniac, this is this, this is this, this is this. Once they have that label, my mother's a narcissist, my father's a narcissist, my uncle's a narcissist, then for life they are what? A narcissist, and now you have to, once you diagnose them because of your extensive training in TikTok, now that you've diagnosed your uncle as the narcissist, now you're like, how do I deal with a narcissist? Right? The Quran's entire worldview on how to judge human beings is judging behavior. And the Quran's entire worldview is you judge behavior and you criticize behavior, but what goes on inside the hearts is only for Allah to know. That's not your business. But the label of narcissist is you judging what's going on inside the psyche of a human being. They may be acting in a narcissistic way in that moment, or they have a pattern of behavior that's narcissistic. That behavior needs to be questioned. But the moment you issue a label on someone, there's no hope for you to be able to have a productive relationship, because now, the moment someone says something you don't want to hear, what do they become? A narcissist. The moment you have an argument with someone and they raise their voice, they're an abuser. And now forever they got an abuser tattoo on their forehead. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. This is not our religion. Allah has guided us better than that. And we've created a mess because of this. Because there are young people carrying, my dad's a narcissist, my mom's a narcissist, my brother's a narcissist, and they can't even see their brother anymore. They just see the guy that was being talked about on the podcast. I know that behavior. My favorite guy told me about. This is trick number 7 of the narcissist. This is what they're doing. When they look at you this way, that means this. When they do this, this means this. And you're taking notes and you're diagnosing your your family members. Stop. Stop. You know, in all of that process, you know what, one thing you're sure of? Everybody else is a narcissist except who? You're the humble one in a position to judge everybody else. MashaAllah. Allah says, لا تزكوا أنفسكم هو أعلم بمن اتقى. Do not decree yourselves, do not consider yourselves pure. Once you declare that everybody's not plural, anta is not plural, right? They're not plural. Now the thing is, in English, you guys know first person, second person, and third person? You're familiar? Which one of these is first person? I and we. First person. What's second person? You. And what's third person? He. God is not meant, أَنظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, bro. Give me time until Judgment Day. He ain't going nowhere. He's not going nowhere. You know, if Allah wanted, He could kill Shaitan right now. He doesn't want that to be that easy for you. You gotta live with it, inshallah.
My son is a Muslim, he follows every Muslim rule, but the problem is he loves a Christian girl and he wants to marry her. The girl doesn't want to convert. Can he still marry her? There were several questions like that.
Okay.
We are at about 160 questions.
Okay, somebody will hate me for this. I know there's a qawl of Ibn Abbas that the Christians are also non-Muslims or they're mushrikun. I don't subscribe to that view. I don't believe that's an authentic, or the evidence is against this are pretty strong. There are harms to marrying someone outside of our faith, and they're obvious. The next generation is going to be confused, etc. But if I had to choose between a young man falling into haram and marrying a Christian girl, I would 100% vote with marrying the Christian girl. Because it's in the end, I said this last night, I'll say it again, I don't think boys get married, I think men get married. And men make decisions, and sometimes men make bad decisions and they have to live with their bad decisions. But so long as their decision is within the realm of halal, I have no right to stop someone from something that's halal for them. That's my view. I know that doesn't mean it's a good idea, but that just also doesn't mean that it's not their decision. It is Allah has given them that right to make that decision. And unfortunately for you, Allah has not given parents to stop a man from marrying who they want if it's halal for them. Allah has just simply not done that. Not the book of Allah, not the sunnah of His Messenger. So.
I try, but I keep falling back into the wrong habits again and again. What is the best way for me to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
You need to stay more busy. You got too much free time. Get a job, work out, beat yourself up, do something, man. Or girl, do something. Stop being useless. Your bad habits is too much free time. That's all that is. Go make pizza at a pizza place, for God's sake. Just go take out the trash. Go volunteer at an animal shelter. I don't care. Do something. Be busy. And by the way, Muslim kids falling into bad habits, let me just say something. You guys should be thinking a lot bigger than just, oh, I got school. You should have big aspirations. You're Muslims. You should be thinking about building like powerful institutions, an empire. You shouldn't be thinking like everybody else. And why do you want to build an empire? Not so you can sit on some throne, because you want to create impact in the society in which you live. If the medical system in this country is corrupt, the only way to fix that is when Muslims take over the medical industry. It's the only way. They're not going to take it over if they don't build an empire of hospitals and pharmaceutical companies and labs and even take over medical universities. It's not going to happen. So you can't just say, I want to become a doctor. No, you want to be the one that produces the doctors. I don't want to work at a hospital. I want to run the hospital. I don't want to start a business. I want to take over businesses. And you're thinking, oh, you're teaching an evangelical message. No, I'm not, genius. The more Muslims, last ayah of Surah Al-Muzammil, see some of the aqwal under that ayah. You'll be amazed. Inshallah. Yeah.
How can I be a best friend to my child? Or is this not the correct way?
You should be a best friend to your child, and you should be the scariest person to your child. Definitely a big part of that. And it's natural. Teach them while being friendly with them in an early age. They should turn to you before they turn to anybody else.
What are the attributes or characteristics of
This is the last question, by the way, because I'm hungry.
should have who's a hafiz?
Say that again. Attributes of what?
Attributes or characteristics of a person should have who's a hafiz.
Same as any other Muslim. I don't think there's special categories of people. You did hifz, good for you. You did umrah, good for you. You did hajj, good for you. You become an alim, good for you. You're still Muslim. They're still impacted by all of those messages. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And because we treat them special, we create a cover for them. And now they have to pretend that they are better because we've created that expectation for them. And they start creating a double life for themselves. We're creating this crisis for our kids because we're creating multiple standards. There's one standard for the Muslim, and it's the same standard for the kids that are going to public school, the kids that are going to Islamic school, the kids that are going to Sunday school, the kids that are doing their hifz, the kids that are becoming a alim. I don't care. You're all the same standard. You're Muslim. That's it. One standard. And so we need to teach that standard. What is the standard of respecting elders? What is the standard of honesty? What is the standard of courtesy? What's the standard of brotherhood? How do you deal with jealousy? How do you deal with failure? How do you deal with when someone's upset with you? How do you control your temper, your tongue, your mannerisms? How do you deal with money? How do you deal with promises? You know? How do you control yourself against ghiba, speaking behind other people's back? How do you stop yourself from making fun of it? You think kids that memorize the Quran don't make fun of other kids? They don't bully other kids? What planet are you living on? There's no bullying in hifz schools? I know. There's no comparison and jealousy? Look how many pages I memorized. How many pages you memorized? There's no immunity. There's no stamp of righteousness. There's no uniform you put on and after that you're a good Muslim. Because your real Islam is in your character and your character is emanating from here. So we need to cut that out. Inshallah.